You're listening to the Edible Valley Podcast, episode 199.
On this episode, we're talking holiday meals, kitchen disasters, and turkey. Do you ever wonder where your food comes from? That's what got us started on this adventure.
In each episode, we ask experts to weigh in on the food topics that matter to you, from growers to producers to chefs.
And I challenge John, Darren, and you to learn more about your food and the stories behind it. From our hub on Vancouver Island in the beautiful Comox Valley, join us as we explore our edible valley. And a very good day to you. It's almost Christmas, so we're getting excited here at the Edible Valley podcast. So welcome along. Episode 199. We are so close to 200.
Close.
What do you think, gentlemen?
I'm getting hungry.
I'm getting excited. This is going to be a milestone for us. And
Yeah.
we'll talk more about that in a bit, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
of course.
this is definitely a Christmas show. We're going to get right into it. So, my name is William. I am the producer.
I'm chef and host Jonathan Fraser.
And I'm Christmas enthusiast, Darren Howlett.
There you are. You're Christmas all over. So, today we're going to do our best to help you out with your Christmas dinner. And we're going to put out there a bunch of cooking pitfalls as well. Just things that you can easily remember so you don't make that mistake. And we're going to set you up for success.
Well, I started with a little poem, I thought. Here.
What?
Great.
Yes, so I was playing around, and let me just tone myself up.
This is a new side of John. I've never
Yeah.
seen this before. John the poet.
You're so
I am
sweet.
a poet.
Let's see it.
'Tis the day of Christmas. You awake with a start. You run down the stairs and let out a large fart. That's for you, Will.
Thank you. And record it.
You dash in the kitchen and wonder what to make. What was I thinking? I should give myself a shake. Now to turn on the oven, this should just take a bit. But wait, the turkey just won't fit. Now as you plan all the other dishes, if only you were able, you wish you should have remembered to set the table.
Yeah. Detail.
Now with the kitchen set aflame and your guests look at you and exclaim, call the fire department, the ambulance, animal care, a caterer, and then you realize it looks like we'll be having Chinese food again.
There we go. Nice.
Good one.
Did you write that yourself?
I wrote that myself.
You
I
did?
did that
Did you
this
really?
morning. Yeah. I was thinking, I was like, oh, you know what? Like how often, how many times do we always plan these big dinners and you get into the rum and eggnog and next thing it goes sideways, right?
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah.
It's
So
true.
how do we avoid that?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
hire a caterer.
That's it. That was the
All
Edible
right,
Valley
great
podcast.
show. I charge. No.
So let's jump straight in. Now we're completely unplanned today.
Yeah.
But we've got a really good idea where we want to take the podcast because we've got loads of information.
Absolutely.
How do we impart that to you? I'd really like to jump straight in there and look at one of the top pitfalls. Like, what would you say is one of the biggest mistakes and most common mistakes people make?
I think what people always stress about more than anything is the turkey.
Yeah.
Right.
There's always so much stress and anxiety
Turkey,
around
there
it.
are so many little qualms and so many issues that can happen. And I imagine people have a lot of anxiety about it too, right?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not something you do it's a once a time, and everyone has their perfect turkey.
Yep.
You know, how many different ways can you think of doing turkey? Like you can
You know,
barbecue it.
Yeah, in all honesty, my Christmas tradition is to make sure that I do the turkey a little bit different than I did it last time, or wholly altogether, which has actually given me lots of ammunition as to how to do turkey, because I've done it like 12 different ways at this point.
Well, and that's it. And like, how long do you take it out to thaw? Like
Yeah.
that's like,
Yeah.
what temperature do you cook at it? You know, like there's so many different aspects to the turkey that, you know what?
Yeah.
You need to just relax a little bit.
Sure.
I mean, maybe could you say that maybe the turkey is its own separate category, and the rest of it, maybe you don't even do that. Maybe you split into teams. One person turkey, the other person dessert,
Yeah.
vegetables and gravy, and they're all
Absolutely.
the rest.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of people too again, all that focus and attention paid to the turkey, it's if you have a good, objectively, if you have a good turkey, everything else can be so, but the dinner still went well.
Yeah.
But if you have a poor turkey, and even though the sides are fantastic, people are gonna be like, it was kind of dry. Like the meal was kind of So it does, a lot rests on it, and if one person focused on that or nails that, the rest is.
Well, actually, I think Will brought up a great thing. Is I think when you look at the dinner, because there's different aspects of it you should be thinking about. Is you know what, do what you're good at. Don't you can experiment, and don't do it all yourself.
Yeah.
Half of I enjoy a Christmas dinner is actually being around family and cooking
Forced
a meal
labor?
together.
Making my kids help.
You know what? Kids are amazing at peeling potatoes and carrots.
Prep.
Yeah.
Like there's lots of things you can get help with, and not making it too complicated, right? Like, who needs to make stuff that you can enjoy?
Right.
Yeah.
And take your time with it, and give yourself enough time. Like, let's think about it.
It's true.
Turkeys or Christmas dinner is a full day event, and you should, as soon as you've had breakfast, it's time to start working on dinner.
Yeah. Well, let's back up a bit, because you did mention something today that I was sort of unclear about, but you confirmed for me. Starting 5-6 days ahead of time with making sure your turkey. So I've made that mistake many times. Bought a frozen turkey 3 or 4 days before Christmas, and hey, guess what? Day of Christmas, it's not ready.
Really, not thought.
Yeah.
Well, that's number one.
Yeah, right there. Well, so John had said,
you got to pull the turkey out.
So I don't know if there's a chart. I think that you had said that there was a chart, but pulling it out like 5 days ahead of time, a frozen turkey.
Yeah.
So that it's ready.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm missing my notes. I put it right here. But yeah, pulling your turkey out and letting it sit and in the fridge.
Yeah, not outside. Not outside.
Well, the ideal temperature is to have it between 0 and 4 degrees.
Right.
Sitting outside.
So that's when that's food safe.
That's food safe. Yeah. So then that could be so sitting in your fridge, letting it thing, and so I got a list here. So 4 to 12 pounds should take about 1 to 3 days in the fridge. 12 to 16, about 3 to 4. A 16 to 20 is 4 to 5. And if you're getting the super big 20 to 24 pound turkey,
feeding the neighborhood,
that's a 5 to 6.
Yeah.
And the thing to be concerned about that is that going to fit in your oven?
Right.
Yes.
Well, what do you do if it doesn't? What's your workaround on that?
Well, in past years, we've had experiences with throwing it in the microwave at the last minute.
No.
Just to get it going?
No, just to we're in trouble and everyone's sitting around the table.
Oh my
and
God!
The turkey's still pink in the middle.
Actually, you've done that?
I have not actually done that, but I was at a meal that we had that happen.
And Mr. Bean did that in the Mr. Bean movie as well. Mr. Bean fans out there, yeah. So he wouldn't either. Okay, wow.
Because there is that balance, right? If you overcook, if you cook for way too long, you're guaranteed the dry turkey.
Yeah.
So people always try to make sure that they're not cooking it for too long, which then leads to that very problem of maybe it's undercooked.
And that's something to like that's another thing about if we're going to get into turkeys is how long to cook it for, right?
Yeah.
So I like to cook it actually I'm going to start off by saying I actually like to take my turkey. If I'm doing a whole turkey and roasting it, I actually pour boiling water over top of it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a good tip.
It tightens up the skin.
Yeah, it shocks the skin.
It keeps all the juice and everything locked inside, and that way you get a nicer, crispier turkey. And then
so you're not giving it a boiling water bath. You're literally just pouring some boiling water, just enough to tighten that.
Tighten up the skin.
At the beginning.
Yeah. At the very beginning.
Thawed
raw turkey.
Over the top.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I like to do it at a lower temperature, so I'm going to say 325. And then it's going to take, and that's all depending on how big your turkey is. And I'm not going to ramble on about how many hours you should have your turkey at this temperature, blah, blah, blah.
You can really easily find that stuff online if you need that guidance.
And I don't think this is an episode just about what temperature to cook your turkey. Although we could do that.
But I will, if I can offer, I had, I don't need to go through all the turkeys I've made, but I had a string of a couple dry ones. And so I found the best way online was to debone it first.
Yeah.
I honestly love that method now. We don't have to go into that, but you reduce your cooking time down to like an hour, maybe an hour and a half by deboning, and you get to make your gravy way ahead of time, which means you get to use that stock or your stock way ahead of time. So you get to use that stock for your gravy, for your stuffing, like everything just comes out. For me, it came out way better, and that's my preferred method now.
Well, and that's what Thanksgiving this year I did it sous vide, which was just absolutely amazing because it was like
the most tender, moist turkey you can imagine.
So I cooked it right to that internal temperature. I went to 100 and actually I think I did 160 for 4 hours.
Yeah.
My numbers might be off there.
No, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and then just finished it in the oven, and I just put it on the broiler, and it just crisped up the outside, and it looks gorgeous. But I mean, that's the other thing too, is like, getting that internal temperature. Please get your internal temperature to at least 165.
165, and doesn't it have to be maintained there for 5 minutes to make sure all the bacteria.
You want it to be there, but basically, if you're going to stick the thermometer in there, which you should put it in the densest part of the turkey,
right?
So don't put it into the breast,
right? You're going to get a false reading on that.
You're going to get a false reading, and you're going to find out. And this is where the microwave came in handy: is that the legs,
right?
The thicker the dark meat didn't cook all the way through. So
that's right.
That's where it was a little underdone. And
We're talking Fahrenheit, aren't we?
Yes,
and that is this 165 is a cooked chicken.
Yeah,
same temperature.
Same temperature as cooked.
Yeah.
Pretty
much.
Okay, now as we poured hot water over it. We've thawed it 5 days ahead. The oven's ready to go.
It fits.
Giblets.
So there's one. Make sure you've pulled the giblets, because you're going to want those for gravy.
Yeah.
But what happens when 32-year-old Darren leaves the giblets in the turkey?
So what happened, Darren?
It was a bit of a disaster in that I felt that it altered the flavor of everything. I don't know. And then I didn't have that great gravy base,
right?
Which is so important.
Yeah.
But so I guess the thing there is to, before you put it in, please. I'm going to say, I don't know what John's opinion is here. Please don't stuff your turkey. You're never going to be 100% sure if it's fully cooked. You don't know if you're handing salmonella out to all of your guests. But
how does the stuffing the turkey cause that problem?
Well, because you're getting all the juices running into a ball of wet bread.
Okay.
That isn't getting the benefit of the oven heat,
right?
Yeah, like
get really nice.
It's getting sheltered from the oven heat.
So you could be getting food poisoning from the stuffing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So cook it separately. Why is it originally done in there?
I think
flavor.
I think it was about flavor and capturing flavor, most likely, or
I think it's just become tradition.
Yeah. But if you,
there is something about, I mean, part of it is the tradition is that you're putting in this bread to soak up all the extra juices from the turkey,
which in theory is fantastically flavored, right?
And back in the day when you didn't have a thermometer, and you most likely probably overcooked and had a lot of dry turkey. You know, like we're kind of in a good spot now that we have, and most people have a thermometer and they're very cheap to pick up. So
But so that was the big difference for me, is the first year that I wasn't stuffing turkeys, when I sort of realized my folly, I forgot to check and pull out giblets, all the stuff that makes for a fantastic gravy. I forgot to check for that and left it in there, and found out near the end of the cooking of the turkey.
Yucky.
So I would say, regardless what your method is, always check the turkey. Check the turkey throughout before you.
Okay, so we've covered a lot with the turkey there, and I think the key idea was to separate the turkey with everything else, because the turkey is just, a lot of that is involved, and then it's onto the vegetables. So let's have a quick break, put the kettle on. We're going to come back in a second, and we're going to talk about cooking the vegetables. Okay, welcome back to part 2 of the Edible Valley podcast, episode 199. We've covered a lot about the Christmas lunch in the first part of the episode, but the key to remember is to separate everything. So your turkey is just for one person. Get the turkey done for one person, and then everything else, delegate it to someone else. We've covered a lot there, but now it's the time to start covering the vegetables, the gravy, maybe a bit of dessert. So, gents, what have we got?
Well, I want to start straight off with menu planning because I
Yeah.
think this comes in more than just talking about Christmas dinner, but any dinner party you have
Right.
together, because there is the stresses of timing, right?
Right.
Like your turkey's going to take a couple hours in the oven at least.
Yeah.
So don't put your potatoes on
Yeah.
when the turkey goes in the oven because they're not going
Right.
to work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you need to be talking to the other person.
Yeah, we need to.
Yeah.
There needs to be the communication,
Yeah.
but a little bit of it is starting out and having a plan. So going out and being, I always like to write a menu,
Yep.
which I mean, and people get stressed out about menus, but like keep it simple. Be like
Yeah.
turkey,
Yeah.
gravy, stuffing, potatoes. We're gonna have some carrots. We're gonna do some Brussels sprouts. Everyone loves those.
I knew he would.
We got the yams. You know
Right.
what else am I missing on the classic dinner here? Right.
Maybe cranberry sauce. But there, yeah, exactly. You write those things down. How many people need to eat those things? And then you're not over purchasing. You're not over buying. You're making sure you hit all the right things that you need.
Yeah. And just think, like think about it. Like everyone's going to have a spoonful of everything.
Yeah.
And they're going to eat too much.
Yeah.
My
Wouldn't be
biggest-
the holidays if we didn't.
if you're not laying on the couch afterwards groaning and falling asleep because of the turkey, right? So that's where I always look at it, like set that up, and then that gives you a bit of a thing and then you can prep from that. So take that, branch it out, and be like, I got to cut carrots, and I got to get butter put together, get everything assembled.
And
this is what we do in the restaurant, right?
Yeah,
We
might I
assemble.
add, if you do that a couple days ahead of time and fill out your list, you might be stressed to sit down and write down a menu, but it's actually going to alleviate so much stress coming up to the cooking time. You've already got it. You've already got your plan there, right?
Yeah.
You've already got your everything's there. You're actually taking stress away from future you.
Yeah, so I can almost imagine that you've got the plan, but you've got the actual synergy of the moment and that sort of instinctual idea of the flow of when it's got to go in the oven and what's going to happen.
Right.
And if you've done the prep, if you've done the planning,
Yeah.
you can really get in touch with that kind of flow of the kitchen, which is what takes it, I imagine, as a layman, from being quite a good lunch to wow, how
Yes.
did you do this?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And timing things, knowing how long everything's going to take to cook, so that everything's close to finished cooking right at the time. I mean that does take a little finesse and a little what's the word I'm looking for? A little, not expertise, but you have to have done it a few times before it all comes together fairly easily. But you got to start somewhere too.
Oh, exactly. And here's the thing too: is like once your turkey's done, you should let it rest.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Right, so we're
It's
talking-
actually one of the most important points.
And here's a better point to that: is when your turkey is resting, that's when you can reheat the stuff that you have,
Right.
and then you can have like a
okay.
cooking oven. So if you're a little bit panicked about things, like you can have that oven now is not being used for a turkey. You turn down the temperature a little bit, and you can assemble all your other dishes, put them in the oven.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we use bowls and things that are oven
Oven
safe.
safe. You don't want to hear that ka-ching and it
yeah.
smashes in the oven.
Yeah,
China
or
and the Brussels sprouts.
this plastic microwavable bowl doesn't work in the oven. I don't understand, right?
So how long have you got for resting it? If you look at resting it as a period, a golden time to get the final touches done to everything else, how long have you got?
I would
Yeah, I got a couple points on that.
I would say 10 to 20 minutes is
Yeah.
definitely a good time.
And I would say too, if I might add, if you're going to tent it, which is where you put something over it, thinking that you're retaining the heat,
Okay.
you're actually going to continue to cook it, and it's going to get drier.
Ah.
So that
opposite.
can work for you or against you. If you're like, this is slightly underdone, I mean by a couple of degrees, you can tent it while it's resting, and it will continue to cook a little bit. That might help you. But if you've hit maximum, if you've hit the right temperature, don't tent it. Otherwise, you're going to keep getting tougher as it sits there.
Make a brilliant point there, because that's why I always say cook to 165.
Right.
because I always tent it afterwards, right? And so then the temperature's probably going to raise up to 170 once it balances out the
which
temperature
is
throughout
safe zone.
Yeah, and so that moisture that's built up in there is going to spread back into because basically all the moisture is going to suck to the middle,
Right.
and then as you let it rest, it's going to return back to.
So you don't want to lose that liquid. That's the key.
That's the key. So when you cut it right away, all that liquid pours off. And if you've got stuffing in the middle of it, then that's where the stuff.
Yeah.
That's where you save it, right?
Right.
But if you just let it rest for that little bit of extra time,
Yeah.
and then so if you've cooked your turkey and you know having an extra glass of wine, chatting as it always happens, and your turkey's at 175, don't tent it.
Yeah.
Pull it
Don't.
Easy.
Let it rest.
And we say tenting because you literally just take a piece of tin foil and you make a little tent out of it. That's all we're saying. Like if people
as
can't
that.
visualize what we're talking about. Yeah.
Don't take the dirty dish rag. And
No.
Okay, it's a little bit like when you're buying a steak in a restaurant to take away. If you want it medium rare, you order it rare, and it will come up to.
It's
another
possible. Yeah.
temperature.
Yeah. For takeout. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah. We've established, getting into your cooking times, making sure your times are sort of matching up so that everything's ready. But there are things that you can cook in advance, and they only need like a 5-minute refresh, and that you can do that. That's what John was saying.
Yeah,
you can do
that's
that. Maybe you cooked your carrots early, and you got them to almost done, and you did that hours ago, and now your turkey's resting. Well, now's the time to finish those 5 minutes or 3 minutes.
roast potatoes are an excellent
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
Yeah, okay. So that brings us on. I want to get really into the vegetables now. So you've taken it out, you've tented it, or done what you're going to do with the turkey. What is your biggest concern now with the vegetables? What's number 2 after the
Well,
turkey?
let's say things like churning your carrots into mush.
Yeah.
Right.
Again.
And that's what you're going for.
Yeah,
Nice
but I
carrot
mean that's the
puree
whole
is
thing.
beautiful, right?
That's the folly there is that if you're cooking them early, and you cook them to fully done, well, you have nowhere to go from there except for to get them mushy.
Right.
So if you cook them to almost done, when you come back to them later, when it's time for service, you're just heating them, getting them to finish.
I just got excited.
Oh yeah,
Let's talk about blanching.
yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Oh, here's a tip, beautiful tip.
He's
for
got that.
everyone.
He's got that.
So this applies to all your vegetable dishes.
Oh, this just makes me happy inside when you do this. So you take a pot of water and you season it a bit and you bring it to a boil. And then you grab another pot and you fill it full of ice and water.
Yeah, gotta have ice cubes in there.
Ice cubes are a key to this. You take let's say broccoli.
Sure.
Broccoli is a
Yeah.
beautiful one for this. Now, when you have your broccoli and it turns that ugly browny gray and it just looks
It's been so overcooked.
so overcooked and it's mush and you're like,
Yeah,
if you take that broccoli, drop it in the water,
the boiling water.
boiling water, and then just as it gets to that nice cook thing, pull it out and drop it right into the ice water right away. That'll shock the vegetable and it'll keep that beautiful green color in there.
Right. So if you're boiling it to the point where you know how broccoli, as you're cooking it, will take on a greener green than it is.
Yeah.
If you get it to that green, that very ultra green, then do your shock. It will stay there. It doesn't continue to cook. It stays right there.
Yeah,
At that
exactly.
beautiful green.
And then you can take that and you just have to reheat it.
That is a
it's-
really good
Then
tip.
it takes 30 seconds,
So
right?
that's called blanching and shocking.
Yeah, and so you can do this with carrots. You can do this with Brussels sprouts. You can do this
Green
with
beans.
any vegetables.
Yeah.
The only vegetable that I have ever blanched that has disappointed me, and this is
Oh.
shaking my fist in the air, purple beans.
Oh yeah.
The most heartbreaking thing I've ever done is
You
I have
lose all
these
that beauty.
beautiful purple beans. My producer who brought them to me, he's like, hey, we've got these beautiful purple beans. And I'm like, oh, these are going to look so perfect on this dish. So I'm like, I'm just going to blanch them off. So they're just like that purple's just going to pop. Dropped them in the water and they all turned green.
Yeah.
Green.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I didn't see
The
that
purple edge gets
Just
lost.
Gone.
Wow.
And I was like, and I almost cried. I, was like, I phoned him up and I said, what is going on with these beans?
Okay, so the one thing that this won't, I'm going to sort of steer this back. One thing that doesn't really work well on Brussels sprouts. Let's talk.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What do
They're
you
tricky.
suggest for Brussels sprouts?
I just
For
love
cooking in advance or getting them ready in time?
love caramelizing Brussels sprouts.
Oh,
Yeah.
how'd you do that? That sounds
Well,
nice.
and that's really slow cooking them.
Right.
Let's be honest. I'm not the biggest Brussels sprout fan.
Nor am I.
Like maybe because I've had the old steamed and blanched with the notch in the back. But I find throwing them in the oven in a little bit of garlic butter.
Having them or whole?
I even like having them
Yeah.
a lot of times, and then actually covering them with a lid or with tinfoil or something, roasting them in for an oven, just so they cook through and they're tender, and then pulling that off to get that real nice brown color on them, and then
sticky sort of
and
garlic butter.
And like garlic butter is.
What temperature in the oven?
I would do these. You know what? I would do these anywhere from 350 to 425.
Right.
Yeah,
Really trying to create that browning.
Yeah. And that would be like I'd cook them at 350 to get them tender, and then bring that temperature up to really caramelize and get that
and then that's it,
brown
job done.
color. Yeah, and then you know what? If you threw some toasted nuts on there, like some almonds or pine nuts or any nut.
But see,
and some people, not my thing, but like a sharp cheese or blue cheese on there would just be like boom.
Yeah. But see, that's using the oven space. So you would have to do that after the turkey, or this is about figuring things out.
Well, here's one too: is I would roast them in to get them all cooked all the way through.
Yeah.
With the turkey.
Okay.
Pull them out, and then while the turkey's resting, you could throw the broiler on, put them under the broiler.
Right.
Or you could transfer them into a frying pan and saute them you could do it in a frying pan as well.
Right. Finish them in the
Right.
Bring them back up to warm
on them, and that would just bring that little brown color onto them, and that's that sweetness from the
takes it to the next level, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I feel like because I said to everybody, don't cook your stuffing in the turkey. Cooking your stuffing out of the turkey, super simple. I don't even know if I need to run over it. It's literally make your stuffing and don't put it in a turkey. There you go. Put it in.
Wait, go over it. This is
I know. I didn't want to
you-
leave people hanging. I want to make sure that they know that it's not just going to magically be cooked as they've now not put it in their turkey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it still needs to go in the oven.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just put it in like a casserole dish, what have you.
Yeah.
Cook it at a fairly high. I go a little higher than normal temperature, and but monitor it, because I've had the mistake of one time just assuming everything would be okay, and I had a thick layer of almost an inch of just black char at the bottom because I wasn't paying attention.
Yum.
So you're gonna need to pay attention to it, but just
Okay.
there we go. Cook
I'd
it.
like to. Sorry,
No, I'm just saying casserole dish. Cook it aside 20 minutes to 25 minutes.
Stuffing is one of my favorite bits. I'd have that instead of the turkey, but I shouldn't. It's true. Okay, so I want to talk about potatoes.
All right.
Yeah, we need to talk about potatoes. Elephant in the room. Potatoes.
Are we talking mashed potatoes, roast potatoes? Or are we talking both?
We got to talk roast
man,
potatoes.
how
Surely.
many? Roast potatoes? Oh.
Yeah, we can segue into it. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like right now I'm doing a beautiful duck fat roasted potato at work, which is
so good.
So good.
Lovely.
Render off your duck fat and just toss the potatoes in that. I mean, you don't have to do that. Like tossing them in a nice oil.
So what's happening with the turkey at this point? Just to give us a kind of an idea of how the roast potatoes are starting off.
Well, you got two
I will
ways.
say this is why I always do mashed potatoes, because I don't have the oven space to do the roast as well. But let's John.
Well, and here's another one that I do with roast potatoes is I steam my potatoes beforehand. A lot of times. So I'll steam them till they're done. So I'll use like a new potato, steam them just till the fork goes through them. So
this is happening when the turkey's in the oven.
This is happening the day before.
Okay.
So you can steam these potatoes whenever you, not whenever you want, but a day or so beforehand.
Turkey's still defrosting.
Yeah.
Turkey's still defrosting. Cook those potatoes, like put them on cold water on a pot on the water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying this wrong.
Yeah.
Pot, cold water potatoes.
No, it's good. Yeah.
Cook them till they come up to a simmer. Make sure a fork goes through them. Strain them off. Let them out to cool. Put them in the fridge.
Don't put them away warm. Let them cool.
Let them cool. Put them away in the fridge because they're going to keep cooking. And then you can cube them up. This is easy way. Toss them in an oil of some sort because you need something to crisp it up. And then some flavoring, some seasoning, so herbs or spices or whatever you're kind of feeling like that day,
Yeah.
And then just throwing them in the oven. And you could do them,
And is this during the turkey?
You can do this during the turkey. And then you can get them crisped up a bit, and then you can pull them out and then reheat them a bit.
Okay.
Right.
I'm just giving
Again,
some easy
I'm
ways
going to
to
say the one thing to avoid you ruining, I think, to avoid ruining your mashed or your roast potatoes, you can cook them early and then finish them off again just before serving them so that they get warm and crispy again. But if in between, when you've cooked them, that to almost finished, again, don't cover them, don't tent them, whatever. You're just going to completely go against that roast. I've done that before where everybody's like, well, we got to keep everything warm, Don't, because you're going to ruin that potato, that roast potato there.
Right. What will that do?
Well, it would get mushy. It would just turn
Oh,
into like a
really?
mashed potato. Almost,
So you get
with
that
some crunchy.
crunch.
With the
Yeah.
steam.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And I mean, you can go straight in with the potatoes, in with the turkey at the same time until you've got that beautiful, like if you've got room in the oven and the turkey's not, you haven't got that big of a turkey, you could put them in at the beginning, get them nice and toasted, take them out. I also like to say with potatoes, they really suck salt.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like to season near the end.
Yeah.
Season the beginning and season at the end.
Yeah, but not in the middle.
You'll be surprised how much salt you can use on a potato and still not taste it, and unless you season it at the end.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so and that way actually you can reduce the amount of salt you're using because
Right.
you season a little bit in the beginning to get those flavors started, and then a little bit at the end, and so you don't have to be like completely saturate them in salt.
So, little side bit of advice: fish and chips. When if you do have the fish and chips wrapped up or in a box, open them up and
Yes.
don't let them steam.
Absolutely.
The
That's how
I
you
used to
get
go.
soggy chips.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I used to go to a place where he made a little chimney. He'd been doing it. He was about 85. He'd been doing it his whole life. And he'd make it was a bag it went into, like a paper bag. And he'd make a chimney that went up like a normal
nice.
chimney.
That's
and all
awesome.
the steam just comes out. But it stays
Yeah.
warm because
Yeah.
it's covered. Chimney.
You know
That's
what?
awesome.
And the other thing you can do, totally Canadian thing, and this segues into the next part.
Okay.
Cover it in gravy and throw some cheese on it.
There you go.
Oh,
Mask your
Love it.
mistake with some gravy and then some cheese.
But that is the next thing I want to talk about.
Sure.
Because
Gravy?
that is like,
Yeah.
gravy is like,
Crucial.
It is.
you know, you've got your stuffing, you've got your turkey.
Gravy
Now-
can save everything.
Oh,
Or
is-
gravy or be the highlight. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and there's so many different ways of doing gravy. Whether you depending on what you thicken it with, whether you want to thicken it with a roux or like a flour and oil, or whether you want to thicken it with a starch. So cornstarch, arrowroot, tapioca starch.
I find that for people out there that might be unaware of the difference, I find that if you use one of the starches, your arrowroot, your cornstarch, you're going to get almost like a glossy, almost semi-transparent gravy. Whereas if you use a flour or like a base, like a roux, you're going to get that thick, opaque color of gravy.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
And so there's a couple ways to go about this. I mean, always get the drippings from the pan.
They are gold. They are the
That
most
is
important thing
Oh,
in your meal there.
if you take that turkey and put it to the side and just throw the pan in the washing machine, you're throwing
Yeah.
half of the flavor and goodness away right there.
You want those pan drippings, also known as fond, the little brown bits at the bottom. You definitely want
Yes.
all of that.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Like, and that's why myself and Darren are both getting into deboning the turkey because you
Yeah.
can roast those bones off the day before and get a stock going.
Oh my God, so much more flavor.
And here's the thing too: is once you've got that stock going, as you're prepping along, and you're cutting up your vegetables and doing all your prep, you're just throwing that into your stock pot.
Right.
The whole
Right. Everything.
So all
Everything.
that trim that you've got, so that's just adding extra
Your
flavor
onion
to it.
ends, your carrot peels.
Because otherwise it's just going in the bin.
Yeah.
Just going in the bin. So
Yeah,
all of a
what a
sudden you
waste.
can get that little
And
extra
not only
flavor.
that, again, when you're making your stuffing, which always calls for stock, you've now got this beautiful turkey stock that you've made, and
Yeah.
you're splitting it. You're going, okay, well, now this turkey stock is half gravy, half going to flavor my stuffing. Amazing. You're going to have the best stuffing you've ever had, not to mention best gravy.
And you can save yourself from some things if you do too thick of gravy.
Oh, yeah, yeah. What happens if you over thicken?
You just add more stock.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, it's one option you do.
So what happens if I remember my mom having this problem a couple times growing up? I know the answer, but I'm going to draw it out of you. So making the gravy, made a little too much gravy, and the thickener wasn't enough. So now the gravy's running a little thin. How do you correct that?
Well, I mean, other than reducing it,
Which you can do,
is a
absolutely.
great one.
Yeah.
Adding a little bit more starch
Right.
of whatever you're
Problem. My problem was that I tried to take that knowledge and apply it to when I did it next, and I just sprinkled some flour in,
doing. Right.
and then I now had a lumpy gravy.
Ah.
Yeah, because I was like, this is too thin. Oh, just a little more flour. No, now I had lumpy gravy.
Yeah. So that we're going to talk about slurries then.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So that is when we're coming from a roux, which is you're combining flour with butter or oil or fat, right?
Fat of any kind, yeah.
Fat of any kind. So that what that does is that separates the flour molecules. Same thing with like cornstarch is if you add water to the cornstarch, that separates the molecules so that when you add it directly to it, it doesn't clump.
Yeah,
right
you're
away.
making a sort of a suspension, a sort of a suspended fluid liquid.
And you're stretching out the time that it takes for that starch to cook being in that. So when you're adding it, you're always whisking. I mean, a whisk is your best friend.
For gravy,
For
absolutely.
gravy, a whisk, that's going to take care of most of your lumps. I mean, you can do it with a spoon, but I mean, if you want to make life easy for yourself, a whisk, hands down. And so you can just whisk.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I ended up finding is absolutely a slurry is how to thicken, like your gravy's a little thin. Take a little bit more of that flour, maybe even a little bit of that gravy that thin gravy you've got, and mix the hell out of it in a small bowl to the side.
Yes.
Then add it to your gravy
and just add a little bit at a time.
And whisk it in over heat.
Add a little bit, let it come up to a simmer. Add a little bit, let it come up to the simmer.
Best way to thicken
You want to
your
have
gravy.
a spoon. You want to be able to take a spoon, dip it in there, pull your finger across it, and just not have it run.
That's right.
Just gently running.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're looking for. in your
Perfect.
sauce.
There have been some really golden tips.
Yeah.
You know what I
today,
want to
really.
offer? I know that this episode's coming to a close. We've been doing this for quite some time. I'm always available. I'm always in the kitchen. Anybody has any questions for more of this leading up to Christmas? Just text us, email us. I'm available for answers.
Yeah.
And Darren's phone number is.
No, the
Not
proper
Ben.
channels, please. Go through the Emerald Valley.
That's really great. And actually, if one person's got the question,
Yeah.
maybe we'll share that on our social media, and we can help you out. So you could be helping everyone out.
Well, I have two more things on gravy.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I would
Bonus.
need to be
Oh,
wrapping
no,
this
bonus
up.
tips.
I was just saying, your other two friends, if you got a few lumps, a strainer.
Yes.
Run it through a strainer. I like to run all my veloutés, all my stocks, everything through a strainer just to get those little impurities out.
Yeah, especially like sometimes I throw in whole herbs, like in branches, and you don't always necessarily get those out when you're fishing for them later. Great to run it through a strainer. You're gonna, even if you don't have lumpy gravy, you're gonna get that little chunks of.
And if you're in a real disaster and you've done a really bad job, investing in a Vitamix is probably.
You love your Vitamix.
Balloons it up.
I may only use my Vitamix once a month at home, but when I use it, it is.
It's a saver.
And I'm even saying just a blender. You know,
Yeah.
you could literally a hand blender, whatever. You can whip up some of that. I'm still saying put it through a sieve because there'll still be some clumps. But if you've made that mistake and you've got a few clumps in there, which will happen. No one's perfect. Don't feel bad about yourself. It still can be really flavorful.
Yeah.
Hit it with the old blender, whether
Yeah.
it's an emulsion or your hand blender.
Perfect.
All right. So I mean that's great. We've covered absolutely everything there. I feel like I've learnt a lot. So thanks, gents.
Yeah, absolutely. I like talking about this because I know how much pressure and stress there can be around that meal. Yeah. And if we can help take away a little bit of that for some of you, that's a job well done, I think.
And anytime you got to hang out with your family and put alcohol and food involved, things can go wrong.
Yes. And if it goes wrong, well, they didn't do anything. So, you know. Yeah. So, well, that's brilliant. We really hope that we've given you the inside track there with your Christmas dinner. As I say, Darren there has very kindly offered his services. Darren is a font of knowledge with almost everything, and you really could be helping other people because the chances are we're going to serve any question you have, other people will have as well. Yeah. So do get in touch if you've got any questions at all. But otherwise, go forth and make an amazing Christmas lunch and enjoy yourself. Enjoy it. Have a few drinks whilst you're doing it. It's like life. It's about the journey, not just the end results.
And speaking of holidays and enjoying ourselves. I think we're going to take a tiny little sabbatical. You're off to London to visit family, friends. We're going to take a couple weeks off and prep for episode 200.
Yeah.
Dum, 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 dum.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right.
I've been waiting the whole episode to do that.
All right. So have a very, very Merry Christmas.
Very Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
And be excited. We've got a whole bunch of fun things coming up with the Edible Valley podcast in the new year. Not only 200 episodes, but maybe a farm tour.
Where are we going to turn up next? In your Edible Valley. All right. Cheers then. Have a very Merry Christmas. My name is William. I'm the producer.
I'm Chef Jonathan Fraser.
And I'm Darren Howlett.
And that wraps up another episode of the Edible Valley podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and a special thanks goes to the local businesses that help support our podcast. They make it possible for us to showcase your local food community. We'd love you to follow us on your preferred social media at Edible Valley, where you can check out our blog, find recipes and tips, behind the scenes, and of course keep a lookout for where we are going to turn up next in your Edible Valley.
I just realized we're like 15, 20 minutes. We're at 15 minutes, And this has been an Edible Valley production.
Yeah. Beep, 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 beep. Okay. Ready again?